I'm Josh Franceschi from YMAS, and may the rock be with you.
Yeah, I think this is probably our fifth or sixth time we've actually chatted over the years, which is cool.
Yeah, nice, man. Well, thank you for your time again, as always.
No worries at all. Now, it was just about 4 years ago we last chatted, so let's catch up. How have the last 4 years been for you?
Oh, fucking hell. Yeah, good. Yeah, no complaints. I think, yeah, if you're still living and breathing, then you're already winning. So, yeah, it's been a good time, man. Lots of stuff
Good
has
start.
happened.
Good start. Now, a lot of things have happened, and of course, we're here because a new album is on the way. Truth Decay comes out in January, and it's a killer record. It's got such a great vibe and sound to it. Almost to me, it feels like it's a nod to your whole catalog, yet showing some growth along the way. Was that a conscious decision when you put it together?
Absolutely, man. I think when we first started writing the record, we went away to a couple of like Airbnbs in like Cornwall and stuff like that, and just started writing. And within like a couple of days, I was finding it really difficult to understand what the point was, like why we were there, because we were just writing. Literally in one room, there'd be like a punk hardcore song, and the other room would be like ambient jazz. Then it'd be like a dance, and I'd be like, guys, what are we doing? Like, this is ridiculous. So then we sat down and we said, look, you know, what is this band? Who is this band to us? Who do we think this band is to our fans, and maybe the wider kind of picture, and just kind of try to focus on what we think we're good at, and wanted to like kind of reclaim some space within everything, because we came to the conclusion that we can all put our finger on who's like the best British metalcore band, or who's the best British pop band, or the best sort of indie band, and all this sort of stuff. And we're like, you know, if you're aware of YMAS, what do you think YMAS are good at, and why, sort of thing. So we kind of circled back and looked back at our back catalogue, and we're like, you know, wouldn't it be great to try and make, like, we made the conscious decision of trying to make stuff that we've done before, but with our now experience, and with like our kind of, hopefully with our slightly more I don't know, more cultured way of doing things, I guess. So doing like the emo rock sound, but it not being like teenagers just playing really fast and loud and sort of shit like that. And we all agreed that if it felt like contrived or felt like just dodgy, then we weren't going to do it. But you know, we got into our stride effortlessly and started writing songs, and that were getting us all jumping around the room. So we're like, well, this is right then, you know, like this doesn't feel like a band that's just trying to tap into something for the sake of it. Like, this feels worth pursuing. So yeah, that was very much on our radar, and was a kind of collective viewpoint of it all, was to kind of redo what we've done before, but just do it 10 years later.
Works. That it's great. Like, now, I always like to ask about one song on a record that stands out for me, and I've read you've written about some of the songs, but I haven't heard about this one yet. My Dopamine is one that really stands out for me on the record. Can you tell me about how that one came about and a little bit behind it?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So My Dopamine really is a bit like Chewy had this riff for a while, and again, it kind of felt like the demo that he had was very like Warped Tour, and we were kind of like, okay, this is cool, and it's definitely like speaks to us, but we're like, how do we kind of just bring it forward a little bit? And I actually was in like my part of the house whilst they were like tracking it, and then by the time I got in, like by the time the second chorus is done, it kind of goes as like almost like Britpop Oasis middle eight with this huge solo. And I was like, okay, this is different. And yeah, I mean, in essence, the song is really about just kind of like, there's a line in there which is crash course and remorse, we've been through worse before. Kind of like, I guess it's kind of like me honing in on in my relationship that I have with my partner, that, you know, I don't like it when we're kind of on two different paths, and I kind of see her as like my ever present, like that thing that centers me, and that everything, I base my life around how she makes me feel, and therefore, you know, that's why I took using the, the dopamine reference as like, she kind of is like the air in my lungs sort of thing. And yeah, so I mean, it's weird. It's an interesting one because actually, since we started doing press on this record, my dopamine was, we were like, oh, it's a cool song, and then it seems to be one that everyone's like pointed out, has been like, oh, I think the song's got some real legs in it. So we've actually like changed what songs we're releasing when to kind of mirror that. So yeah, which is awesome, because sometimes, like, I'm sure you speak to many artists, and it's like you'll all get kind of, you'll have your individual favorites, but there'll be songs like you go, oh yeah, this is definitely the one. This is the one that's definitely gonna, like, people are gonna be, when they think about this record, they'll think about this song. And my dopamine was just not one that we were all like, we used to, oh, it's a cool album track, but it seems to be one that all our friends love the most, all our families, all our teams seem to really love it. So maybe we're just sleeping on it. So yeah, it's a bit of a sleeper, but I'm glad that you enjoy it, man.
Nice. Now, we've talked about this before. I have a massive love of power ballads, and this album is missing one. What is going on?
Yeah, you know what? We had a couple that we were putting together. I mean, that's something that YMAS kind of, I guess, instinctively and inherently have always done, is we always have like a big sort of like slow ballad song on the record. And we had a couple that we were working on, and there was one that got really close. And then truthfully, we had a deadline for our mixes, and we just couldn't get the mix right of the song. It's one of those things that, we've learned over the years, that if I don't want to ever look back and go, oh well, we just kind of forced that one out, it wasn't right, and we just put it out. So I think maybe the song itself may see light of day at some point, but yeah, we just canned it like last minute. But yeah, I think it's an area of the band I think has always been one that we all love writing kind of like slow ballad type songs, so it's always been something that's been important to us to feature on our albums. So yeah, I too kind of feel like we're missing one on this one. But I guess A Love Letter to the Lost at the end is kind of the last track of the record. Is, it's a slower tempo track, so maybe that kind of fills that space a little bit. I don't know.
I'll allow it. That's all right. That's fine. Now, as a songwriter, how personally have you seen, or especially felt, yourself evolve over time to where you are now?
I think I've become a little bit more measured. I'd like to think I'm a bit more measured. I think a little bit more clinical in terms of like when it comes to my part in the band, because I contribute towards the music to an extent, but it's also like, I, in my opinion, Chris and Max are some of the best guitarists that I've ever been around. On tour and stuff like that. So I don't try and like pick up the guitar when we're tracking and be like, play it like this, because like, yeah, you can barely play, mate, so just chill. But very much, my space is really like melodies and lyric writing, so I've always just tried to constantly finesse that. But I just think that I think there's been a couple of records we've made where I haven't figured out, either beforehand or when I've actually been making the record, exactly what I wanted to say. And I think that unless you say it with your chest as a singer, and unless you like, I've learned to become comfortable with being exposed, because there's been periods in my career where I've seen that as like a weakness, or I've sensed that, or if I show that side of my psyche, or if I say that out loud, then that person will know that I think that about them, or I'm insecure about the way they feel about me, or whatever it might be. But honestly, I think that's the only way really you can connect with people with your music, is by them like being able to inhabit your pain, if you like, and also your happiness and your successes. But there's definitely something very I don't know, it feels, the more personal something is, the more people will, even if it's not something that they straight away would gravitate towards, if they're like, wow, they're really like opening up here and saying something, then they find it easy to tap into. So I think that's the thing I've learned the most, is to how to balance, how to really pour myself in something without it having a detrimental effect to myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, just being aware of also like, you know, how you say things and what you're going to say. But I think, you know, also the things that we've learned from being in this band for as long as we have is that it's all good to make left hands. You know, like if we look at a record like Truth Decay, we've circled back to a sound that, you know, an origin for this band, which was kind of like was ever present for, you know, arguably the first sort of 7-8 years of our band's career, and then we went off and tried different things. But without doing that, we probably wouldn't be able to make this record in the way that we've done it, with the experiences we've had. So I feel like, and mainly as songwriters, but also like in the studio, like if we just continue to make records like Hold Me Down or Sinners or Cavalier Youth, I don't feel that we would have really progressed. And I think, yeah, that's then helped enable us to, when we come back to this, that we can kind of do, as I said, a sound that is so familiar to us and something that we really enjoy doing, but it not feel contrived and not feel like, you know, a bit aging and a bit grating. So yeah, that feels good to me, being able to do that.
Very, very nice. Now, touring wise, you know, we love you guys down here. Any plans you can share with us about a possible return to Australia soon?
I literally woke up to an email about 20 minutes ago with there's like 2 or 3 options, so we just need to figure out which one is definitely the best timeline wise. But I'm, without a shadow of a doubt, will be being Australian in 2023, going with that easily. Yeah,
Looking forward to that already.
We haven't been there. We haven't been with you guys since 2019. You know, so it's like, obviously the pandemic was a huge mountain in that sense. But you know, I would have liked to have come back as soon as people started touring Australia again. So I'm just as kind of wound up and restless about it as a notion that we haven't yet. But yeah, we definitely will be back in 2023.
Sounds good to me. Now, it can be very easy to say what can change over time, but what for you is the one thing that's always remained the same about You Me at 6?
Our ability to make mistakes is always there. We've got a knack for just like fucking things up really badly. But then also like in that same sense, it's like our bouncer back ability, if that makes sense. The way we recover from bad moments. I mean, we've been, you know, we've got a very kind of like colourful history. If you were to look at how many labels we've been on, how many managers we've had, how many agents we've had. And sometimes those decisions have been ours, and sometimes those decisions have been made by people that come in and they want to try new things and whatever. But yeah, I just think that when we've had a bad moment, we always kind of somehow regroup quite quickly and without finger pointing. You know, we'll be the first ones to go, all right, well, that has not worked out, and now we can sit around and feel sorry for ourselves and count the money that we've just spent on lawyer fees or whatever it might be, or we get on with it and try and figure out how quickly we can do something positive out of this. So I think, and that's been from as low scale and small scale as kind of like, you know, playing local floor shows right through to, you know, lawsuits after playing Wembley Arena, you know. So it's kind of, we've been really good at, I think, just having each other's back and understanding that this is the music industry. And I think it's something that I don't often like to go into too much, because I think it sounds like it's one of those things that you don't want to go through the fourth wall, you know, like you want your fans of your music to be fans of your music and not necessarily need to know about all that noise, because it is just noise. And it actually, when it comes down to it, the amount of times that I've been told by someone that they were going to ruin our career, they were going to, you know, make sure they ended our career, and that we'd never do this again, never do that again. Like it always comes back to that choice isn't yours. Like it always comes back to the fans of the music and the fans of the artists. It's that illusion that people in the industry create for themselves, where they're all powerful, all seeing, all knowledgeable. Reality is that just like us, they're just as replaceable as we are to them, if you like. You know, they'll find another band, another artist, and we'll find another label, another manager. So yeah,
right.
But ultimately that's been the thing that I've always been very aware of with this band, is that we're very good at making mistakes owning them and coming back quickly. So yeah.
Very nice. I love that. The other thing that has remained the same for you guys is the five of you. I mean, 2023 is 15 years since your first album. What do you put that 15-year relationship down to?
Oh, I mean, so obviously, like we started our first record, yeah, came out in 2008. But we were a band in high school, so we've been playing like floor shows and fucking, you know the types, like bars that have stages that are that much off the ground.
Yep.
Since I was 15, 16 years of age, and I think we've just I think there's always been really, really challenging moments, and there's been times where I've been like, fuck, I wonder if I could get away with burying him outside somewhere. Like extreme, I would never say hate, but it's extreme moments of like, blah, you're an alien as far as I'm concerned. But I think the secret to it is understanding that and appreciating that in a family dynamic. There are times, where you chase your sibling around the front room trying to kick him, or you tell your mum and dad you hate them when you don't, or whatever it might be. And I feel like we've always, because as I said, we've done it for so long, as we started as kids and grown up together. And we've always split everything 5 ways. That was the easiest decision. That I don't understand why so many people don't make it, because that's the key to longevity. If there's a power struggle in any sort of like any sort of like creative infrastructure, I think you're gonna hit a wall, because at some point someone is not only going to feel unappreciated, but they're going to feel undervalued. And how do we as human beings, we're conditioned to see value in ourselves more often than not in a monetary kind of like situation, So it's like, what's that's your currency. It's how much am I worth to you? How much are you paying me to do something? So we've always just kept money like even, and I think therefore then all that other shit that could come with it doesn't. We'd never have to worry about that. And then it comes down to the basic principles and of treat others as you wish to be treated. And I mean, I can't speak for everybody else, but I feel like I'm right in saying that we kind of go out of our way to protect one another from bad shit's going on. If something bad happens to us as a band, or something bad happens to us as individuals, like, it's how do we kind of gather around and take care of one another. So I think there's very few bands that I've come across that when they're on tour, or the whole band, like on a night out, the whole band go out. Or like, if one of us is going to get food, we all go and get food together. It's a very very intense family dynamic. And yeah, I know there's a lot of bands that have go through different members and changes, and look, maybe that someday could happen to us, I don't know, but we've always just been very clear that if it's not all 5 of us, then it's not YMAS 6, and therefore it's not worth pursuing. So yeah, I think that's been probably the key to it all, man. Is just treating it as you wouldn't fuck over your family. So I think that's kind of the way we've tried to look out for each other in that sense.
Wow, perfect. I love that. So what is the one main thing you've learned about being in a band that you didn't think was a part of it all when you first started?
Mate, I mean, look, as I said, when we started when I was like 15, it was like, how do I have to stop coming to high school? How can I get out of going to college? How then can I get out of going to university, getting a job, blah, 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 right? So there wasn't this thing of, oh, I'll be in my 30s still making a life for myself out of YMAS 6. I know that was never on the horizon for us. And I think sometimes when I think that, we're putting our 8th album, I just think it's ridiculous. When you kind of compare it to some of my favorite bands, I only ever made 2 or 3, so it's like, we see how lucky we are in that sense. But I think when I started out, I didn't realize how patient I would have to be or learn to become with things that are out of my control, I guess. And I think that's the other thing that I think about now is still something that is a bit of a challenge is letting go of things, of not harboring any ill feelings or grudges. I didn't think that the music industry would have the capacity to be as well, as evil, I guess, actually, as it can be. There are a lot of incredible people out there that really do just love music and love working with people and love being creative. And, you know, I think when that's a mutual feeling, and you get to work with people like that, it's amazing. And when you don't, it's like, wow, fuck, I just didn't realize that, you know, I didn't realize I could be such a poor judge of character. So I guess that's really surprised me is I just didn't expect people to be as awful as they can be. But yeah, I don't know. It's maybe I should have watched a few more music docos growing up, eh? I could have learned.
Hey, you're still around, man. It's still happening. It's all good.
Yeah.
Now, I like doing this little thing here. It's a little question I like to call I Wish I Wrote It. So is there one song in the world you wish you'd written, and what would that be and why?
Oh, that's a really difficult question. What I'll do then is I'll go with a song that I've just got on repeat at the moment because I feel like that's because I'm living inside it. It's a song by an artist called Holly Humberston, and it's called "Can You Afford to Lose Me?" And it's basically just it's just one of those songs where you put it on, and the first time you hear it, you go, "Fucking hell, how have they come up with that?" It's just really effortlessly beautiful and haunting. And I guess, you know, fundamentally, it's really sad. It's basically the sentiment of the song is, like, obviously for me, like when I listen to a song, there's, you know, drummers tend to listen to the rhythm section of something. Guitarists are like, oh, that's a sick riff, that guitar tone, blah, 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 which is all really important and valuable. But for me, I listen to A, how does somebody sound, but B, are they saying something that like isn't just like wishy-washy and isn't just throwaway. And this artist Holly, she can't be older than 22, 23, and I don't understand how she writes this. I don't know how she's got to this place where she can be so articulate about her pain. It's really interesting. But yeah, it's just a song where, you know, she's clearly talking about a partner, and as you said, like as the song kind of suggests, it's like, can you really afford to lose me? Like, are you going to be able to find somebody else that will love you the way that I do? But it's not done in like a nasty or childish way. It's very kind of because sometimes those songs can be like, you know, like, oh, you fucked up and I'm off sort of song, and it's, you know, a little bit not distasteful, but just a little bit basic. It's just, yeah, it's really as I said, the way she's verbalized herself, and it is really kind of like powerful but true, and then also again really vulnerable. I'm going through a phase where I'm you know, actually the new Stormzy record again, which isn't really something I was expecting, but it's just a soul album. It's just a beautiful soul record, and obviously he's talking a lot about that sort of stuff in there. So, but I mean, then again, I could also say like 17 Going Under by Sam Fender. I think he's probably one of the best artists we've had come out of England for a very, very long time. It's like an old soul, you know, the way he writes. It's poetry, really. And it's not like, even like his song structures, like in particular in that song, like it's not an A-B song, you know, like it's way cleverer than that, and it's way more of a ride. And I think that's something, actually, that bravery in kind of contemporary, I guess you'd call it pop music, because he's in the charts non-stop and he's kind of revered in in the mainstream kind of arena, if you like, but he just doesn't, you know, clearly his favorite artist is Bruce Springsteen, and he writes like him, you know. But then he has a voice like Dallas Green, and just like it's insane. So yeah, there's yeah, I know obviously you could go down like the classics, but you know, I'd probably go. I'd rather go for the artist that I'm living with right now versus. I wish I was in California by the Eagles. You know, like yeah, who doesn't?
You've given me a few songs to listen to, so that's always good too. I can check them out.
Yeah, nice, man.
Nice. Now, lastly, what I do with everyone is I get them to look ahead to the future. So I want you to finish this sentence for me. In 2023, You Me at 6 will
be in Australia.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know, man. Probably, I don't want to say same shit, different day, because it sounds like ungrateful or Groundhog Day. But I guess it's, you know, we'll be on that next step to that kind of, you know, whatever comes next. It's difficult to know. It's difficult to know what we'll. I mean, I imagine we'll still be together and touring and being creative, but it's just so difficult to know exactly where, when, and how. I think as long as my short answer would be You Me at 6 will be happy. I think that's the only thing that I ever, sounds a bit, you know, Disney, but that's the only thing that I actually truly want for us five. I'm not really too what, you know, I've really moved the goalposts a couple of times in the last few years in terms of what I value and how I measure success. Typically for bands like us, it's like, you know, well, which venue are we going to play and how big is it and what's the next step and which slot the festival we're doing, that sort of stuff. And now I'm just like, you know what, we've done a lot of fucking cool stuff. So if we can continue doing what we can do and being happy, and yeah, you know, we can, obviously we're very ambitious, we have our targets, but we like to kind of, we say it out loud but internally, you know, to one another. But I think as a, I guess, public facing, it should be like we just want to be happy and just continue to do what we're doing, and you know, as uncompromised as possible and without any kind of yeah, without it letting off any bullets in anybody else's direction, just doing things our way without, you know, causing too much trouble.
Josh, thank you so much for your time, man. Always a pleasure and great to actually see you. Like I said before, it's great chat, man.
Absolutely, Troy. Thanks for your time, man. I'll see you when we come down under in the next sort of 6 months or so.
Definitely, mate. We'll catch up.
All right, bro.